Hi, this is Scott from Spectre Gear. For today's Wheelgun Wednesday video, we're going to be taking a look at Speedloaders. This is not going to be a fully comprehensive review or examination of all of the Speedloaders that are out there currently on the market. The reason being is there aren't that many Speedloaders out there currently on the market. I think right now there are currently maybe a grand total of 5 companies that are manufacturing Speedloaders. Of those, other than Safariland and HKS, everyone else is pretty much just making a different version of an HKS loader, so nothing has really grabbed my attention at this point. So we're going to be looking at what you're most likely to encounter when you run into a gun shop or you're ordering online. And again, it'll break down to either Safariland or HKS. And they are two completely different animals in terms of how they operate. So I'm going to be going over the salient features of both and then kind of giving you my assessment and letting you know what I tend to gravitate towards. But to begin with, I should tell you my experience with Speedloaders dates all the way back to 1981. So I've been using Speedloaders for about 41 years now. When I first started using Speedloaders, the ones that I was using were the HKS type. That was the most popular loader then. It is the most popular loader now. I'm not going to say it's the most popular loader because it's the best loader. I am just going to say they have a pretty good marketing machine, and a lot of gun shops, when they go, hey, we need to put Speedloaders on the shelves, they tend almost invariably to order a batch of HKSs and put them up there, and that's what you're going to run into a lot. If you're lucky, you'll find a place that has Safariland, or you will order Safariland online. But let me first start off by talking about the HKS loader because it was the first one. And you probably can tell already that my preference is not towards HKS loaders. They're not bad. They're just not as good as the Safariland in my experience. But let me talk about the features of the loader, and I'll kind of explain a couple of the areas where I have some issues with them. So to begin with, the initial design of the HKS Speedloader looked very much like this Model 29M. And there is an A or an M designator following the model number. And that has a lot to do with how the Speedloader looks from the top. For instance, this is an M and this is an A. And you'll see a difference right here in terms of what you can see with the base of the rounds. What's this little clover leaf or flower-shaped device is at the top is an anti-jiggle design element that they put in here. If you look at the MType loaders, one thing you'll notice right away is have a listen. They jiggle, they wiggle, and they make a hell of a lot of noise. The worst offender on that is the one for the Charter Arms Bulldog. This one is just all over the place, and you can sort of see how much deflection you have on the rounds. Now, according to HKS's literature, the reason they didn't upgrade these particular models, there's something to do with this, the play in this, or the jiggle, or whatever the heck they call it. They say that that's actually a positive point. All I can figure is maybe it has to do with the fact that this is used in 3 different types of 44 special pistol or revolvers, specifically the Smith 696 and I believe the Taurus 5-shot. Because of that, apparently maybe it's variations in the layout on the charge holes. I'm not totally sure. All I know is I don't like it. It makes a lot of noise. Now, if you look at the Alpha models, nothing. Those things are rock solid. They don't jiggle, they don't wiggle, they don't move hardly at all, which is what I like, what I tend to prefer. Makes for a more consistent reload every single time. You will find that if you're using an M-type loader, you're going to index your 2 rounds into the cylinder, and then as they rock in, you will have to just kind of wiggle a little bit to get the rest of the rounds to drop into place. I don't find that to be ideal. Definitely not my preferred method, so that's why I prefer a loader that holds the rounds a little bit more positively. Now, when it comes to the release of the rounds, the release is done via the knob at the top, and it's done by turning the knob. In its locked mode, it's to the left. You're just going to turn the knob, just a slight turn to the right, and that's going to release the rounds. Now, I'll show you what that looks like. It's real simple. Just turn the knob and the rounds drop out. Gravity is what assists the rounds into the cylinder, which is why it's so important on the load portion of the reload that the muzzle be pointed as directly towards the ground as possible to allow gravity to assist the rounds into place. None of these loaders I'm going to be talking about actually push any rounds into position. There are loaders that do that, specifically the Safariland Comp 3, and I'm going to do a specific video just on the Comp 3 to show you how that's done. But to put the rounds back into the cylinder, of course, you just, and let me show you real quick the mechanics of this. You'll note there's a little ball detent that's spring-loaded. There's 2 roll pins that give you your stop points. Then there's a shaft with another roll pin that locks either to the left or to the right on that ball detent. Sorry. So when you turn it into its locked position, it's kind of hard to see in here with this lighting, but there's a little star in there and it'll turn, and these little projections from that star will lock on to the actual rim of the casing or shell case. So that's what actually holds the rounds in place. Now, it's not holding a heck of a lot, and it is a bit of a problem. And it has to do a lot actually with the way pouches are designed. And this was the main problem I had with this. And this actually happened to me one time back in 84 or 85. So I had an HKS Speedloader in a pouch, and it was the cup type pouch where it was completely encircled and closed at the bottom. So I had a flap, and the way you got the Speedloader out, there was no way to grab the body of the Speedloader, so you had to grab it by the knob. And sure enough, as I was extracting it out of the pouch, I turned the knob slightly and the rounds stayed in the pouch, and I was holding in my hand an empty loader. So I learned after that to be very delicate about how I was removing the rounds from the pouch. But I always remembered that, and I didn't like it. Another thing is, if you toss this on the ground or it falls, you're going to lose some rounds. Pretty likely that you're going to lose some rounds. But getting back to that knob arrangement. Now, we've recently started producing our Speedloader pouch for the HKS type loaders. Let me show you something, and this, I designed this Speedloader pouch very specifically around that problem. To get the Speedloader out of this pouch, once you release the flap, you don't need to turn the knob. Actually, what the recommended method is that you reach down to the bottom and you actually press up on the bullet tips and then extract the Speedloader by the body, and you hold it by the body the entire time. At no time do you touch that knob until the moment that you're going to release the rounds into the cylinder. So that's a much more efficient design, and again, it's an element that that I very specifically designed into this pouch to prevent that knob from getting turned. But having said that, you can still turn that knob. There's a number of different occasions where you may turn that knob early and it might be a bit of a problem for you. So another thing that I will tell you is when you're using these HKS loaders, again, you want to index by holding the Speedloader by the body. You do not want to do it by holding it by the knob. Because another thing I've seen happen is that people are holding it by the knob here. First off, it doesn't give you very good control over the Speedloader. Okay, you've got a smaller gripping surface, whereas holding it by the body is pretty easy to index your 2 and then drop it into place and then go ahead and hit your release. But it has happened where people are holding this and they're fighting it around like that. Now in this case, it all worked out for me because I was sort of lined up, but it did release early. So it's possible, and again, in fiddling around with that and moving it around by the knob, that you can release. You can train yourself away from that, but just understand, be cautious about it, and again, don't touch that knob until you want to release the rounds. Manipulate by the body, and you can avoid a lot of those problems. Use a proper Speedloader pouch. You can also avoid the other problem of the rounds releasing early in a pouch. And I say that because while Safariland is my preferred Speedloader, there are some revolvers that I own that Safariland does not make a Speedloader for. So HKS is the only option. So it's one of those things there are times I do have to deal with it, in particular when it comes to the Model 27. I have a couple of these older Comp 1 Safariland Model 27 loaders, but these things are hard to find anymore. So I tend to use the HKS Model 27 a lot, but works fine. Again, I index by the body, only turn the knob when it's time to release, and so far I've had pretty good luck with it. So again, it's not all bad, and I'm not saying HKS loaders are junk. They're not. I am just saying there's a slight edge for me on the Safariland. So let me show you the Safariland and kind of explain. This will explain the difference between the two. The way the Safariland releases is the knob has nothing to do with releasing the rounds. The rounds are released by pressing on the body of the speed loader, because the unlocking mechanism is in the center of the speed loader right here. And let me use this one to show that. You can see this little star in the center, and that little star, each leg kind of presses out against the rounds, again, to keep the rounds from moving in. But that star is in its locked position. What's going to happen is when I go to load and I drop this into place, that star is going to contact the ejector star, specifically this pin right, this locking pin that's coming off the ejector star. It's going to contact that, and that's going to press against that star. So you get everything lined up into position, get it locked into place, and to release the rounds, all you simply do is press down on the body of the speed loader, and it releases the rounds into the cylinder and unlocks, just like so. And again, keeping that muzzle pointed as straight down to the ground as possible. It's going to aid in that process. And you can sort of see now that the rounds are out. It's in its current locked position there. Again, when you press on that, the actual tension of the rounds locks it in place. With no rounds in there, it goes in and out fairly easily. Let me load the rounds in, and I'll show you how the loader itself locks. So you load each individual round in. And then you take that pin, and this is the only reason this knob exists, is you just simply press up and turn. So you press up and then turn to the right, and it locks it in place. And now those rounds aren't going anywhere. Same design applies to the Comp 2, except the knob is a little bit bigger. Again, you get your 2 rounds index, press in place, and then you just press on the knob, let the speed loader fall away, and you're good to go. And here's a close-up view, and that's the knob. And again, it's in and then turn. Just a very slight turn. So I'll show you a little secret on this one. And I have seen some bewildering ways that people do this. Safariland actually for a number of years sold a loading block. And it had, I want to say it was like 10 individual blocks, and they looked like, well, they had 6 holes drilled into the block to drop the rounds into. Then you would press the speed loader down over the rims and then lock it in place. But actually, the easiest way to do this and the best way to do this is not to press down on the tips of the rounds. All you simply do is drop your rounds in there. You hold the body of the speed loader, and all you're going to do is press that knob up and then just turn it slightly to the right. That's it. Now, I have a high round here, and that's pretty common on these. So to release this, take a pin, and I release the lock. So let's do that one more time. Press up and lock in place. And then I make sure that I have no high rounds. If you're going to have a problem, you're going to notice it right away, because you're going to have one round that's kind of high. It happens to me every now and again, and all that has to do with is as you're pressing this up, it just a little bit of drag on that star just drags that round up just high enough to where the rim isn't captured. Not a huge problem. Once it's locked into place, nothing's going to happen. You can throw this thing around a room all day long. Rounds are never going to come out. It's going to hold it in place until it's time for you to release the rounds. Now let me show you another feature between the Safariland and the HKS that is also another positive point for the Safariland, and that's the compact nature of the speed loader itself. Note here this knob creates a little bit of extra height to the speed loader itself. The Comp 1 is much more compact, so if you're dropping, particularly with the little J-frame snubs, I carry a J-frame snub in a pocket holster. I carry it in my left front pocket. And one of these days I'll explain why that is. But I carry my reloads in my right pocket, and I carry 2 speed loaders and 1 speed strip. And they drop right into cargo short pockets like it's nothing. Well, I shouldn't tell this story. I don't think statute is up on this one. But I once played a little game with a security guard at an event, and they didn't know what they were grabbing when they were patting down my pocket. And I was able to tell them it was something completely different than speed loaders. But they missed a J-frame 38 and 18 rounds of reloads in my right pocket. Completely missed it on a pat down. It was comical. But like I say, they do drop into the pocket and conceal fairly nicely. But of course, if you're looking for some type of belt pouch, again, we make the belt pouches for both the Safariland, and the HKS Model 36 loaders so that you can actually carry them on the belt. Now, I think that's kind of it really about Speedloaders. Again, my preference is in almost all cases going to be towards the Safariland over the HKS. But as I said, got a couple of guns, Bulldog 44 in particular, and that does not, the only option in the world at this point is this HKS loader. And as much as I really don't like this loader, it at least works. So it'll get me there. But that's sort of it for the moment. I think in the next video, I'm going to do a more close-up view of the actual speed loading procedure that I did. I did a range video just recently where I showed some reloads, but I've had some people say, hey, can you show that even closer? So I think for next Wheelgun Wednesday, I'll go ahead and show you how that reload is done up nice and close so you can see every single little detail of the load process. But with that, I will go ahead and bring it to a close. And in regards to our speed loader pouches, like I said, we have a full line of speed loader pouches now available. We recently upgraded and added pretty much all of the HKS loaders, at least in the pants, the 1 3/4 inch pants belt variation. We've got a couple of holes still left to fill on the 2-inch duty belt type. But if you're looking for a concealed carry pouch for your speed loader, we have pretty much everything covered, from the little Model 36 loader all the way up to the big boys, the in-frame 44 and 357. So look for those on the site, and if you're interested, please visit us at spectregear.com, and I'll leave some links in the description as well so you can find them a little bit more easy. But with that, I'll bring it to a close. Thank you for watching and or listening. Have a wonderful day. This is Scott from Spectre Gear. Take it easy.